Hi, this is Robert O'Reilly. My name is Gowron. Honor to you and your house. You're listening to Trek FM.
T.O. Gray Hospital.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to another episode of Earl Grey. I'm here today with Richard. Hello, Richard.
Hello, how you doing?
Very good. Now, Captain Lee sent his away team, that's Richard and myself, for this very important mission, so he's not here with us this week. But joining us today is Patrick Devlin. He is associate producer on Metatrex. Patrick, welcome to Earl Grey.
Well, thanks for the invite, guys.
We are so excited to have you, and you came up with a fabulous topic that we haven't discussed, and that is Captain Jean-Luc Picard. So, Patrick, what made you think about Captain Picard, and what do you like about him?
Well, he's my favorite captain, and oddly enough, he's also the most militant of the captains, which doesn't show too much if you don't pay attention to the other series, because he seems friendly and nice, which you wouldn't think of like a captain of, say, like a Navy vessel, but he really distances himself from the crew, keeping them kind of at arm's length. So that when he does have to send them off, you know, if they die, well, it sucks, but he wasn't really friendly with them in the first place. I mean, that's kind of how it works.
Ouch.
Yeah. I totally agree with that assessment. Yeah, he's definitely one of the more militant. I mean, you would think that someone like a combat officer like Cisco, but then again, you know, even in the most, you know, harshest of environments or even situations, you grow fonder with those who are around you. So, and usually those were his crew. So, but yeah, he's definitely one of the more militant ones. Yeah, come to think of it.
Well, isn't Janeway known for being like the one who follows like the Federation, the rules exactly, and she's sort of obsessed with it? I mean, wouldn't she be considered more militant like that because she's always worried about the Federation and the rules and Starfleet?
Yeah, I mean, she was very much similar to Picard. When they designed her character, they designed it very much like Picard, but she has a lot more close-knit relationships with the rest of the crew, partially because they're stuck in the middle of nowhere with no one else. So they kind of were forced into bridging those gaps where, like, if you look at like all the episodes where they bring up poker games, Picard never plays. I think if that was Janeway, she would have played because it's kind of just what you did on the ship. She had a much friendlier relationship with Tuvok. And obviously Chakotay, who everyone wanted her to end up with, but like that, you don't see that with Picard, with one exception, and that's Beverly Crusher. And really, even that's militant because it's really because her husband died under his watch.
Kind of like he owed her one.
Right. It was more of like they were friendly, but they weren't really friends. It was like he just felt he kind of owed it to the person that he lost to take care of her and her son.
Jack Crusher. Yep. More
of like a guardian of the Crusher family.
Correct.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Even though it was his fault. Right. But we're not placing any blame. I mean, Jack Crusher died in the line of duty, and that's where we're going to keep it.
Not pointing any fingers, but the initials are Jean-Luc Picard.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I agree with you. Yeah. You know, I've been very critical of Janeway, and, you know, she bounces back and forth. There's no really middle, really. I mean, except for when they get to the end of the Voyager, and that's what drove me nuts about Janeway was that, okay, so she was to the book, obviously, in the beginning of the series, kind of like every captain. I mean, basically, well, that's not necessarily true with Archer, but except for two with DePaul. But like whenever they start off the episodes or start off the series, they're very to the book. They obviously new command and everything, and they want everything to go well. And obviously relationships form and build and whatever and whatnot. But like with Janeway, it was very straight and narrow, and then it got worse and worse when it came to like being a straight edge captain by the book and everything, especially when Equinox happened. And then she went through her depression and everything. And then I guess she became a friendlier captain. I don't know. They had potlucks at the holodeck or at 10 forward or not 10 forward, the mess hall. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna say it. I know TGJ is gonna hate it, even though I just became an associate producer for them. But I don't like how Janeway's written.
No, I mean it's true though with her because she does kind of. I think though. I'm sorry, I'm like jumping topics here. She does change drastically right around Equinox, but I think a lot of it had to do with the time frame the show was made, and when it first came out, people were like, "Oh, you can't have a female captain. That's preposterous." So they wanted to make her as straight-laced as possible so no one had anything to complain about. And then as they got deeper into the series, they realized they could take a little more liberties with the character. They didn't want to go as far as Kirk. Oh, I'm sorry, Amy. Go ahead.
No. Well, I think with Janeway, I think that she definitely did care for her crew, maybe a little bit more so, especially when Neelix comes on and, she says, you're going to be the crew morale officer. And, she really wanted to ensure that the crew, especially on that long voyage, and like you said, they're stuck in the middle of nowhere, that she definitely had the welfare of her crew in the forefront of her mind and was very aware of that.
Oh, yeah. They even bring it up at the very end, the very last episode, where she comes back to stop her from doing. I can't really remember what happened in the last episode because I didn't plan on talking about Voyager. But she comes back to stop herself from doing something stupid that ends up causing a lot of problems for the crew in the long run. She didn't do that because of a sense of duty, because she could have just said, hey, look, I thought it was the best of the time, and that was what it was. She did it because she missed all those people. You don't get the feeling that Picard would really necessarily miss all those people. He might not like the outcome, but he would see it more as you were in the line of duty, and that's what happens.
Yeah. I can totally see that. Yeah, her emotions drove her. But we're not talking about Janeway. We're not supposed to be talking about Janeway.
Well, we're comparing.
No, right. No. I'm just kidding. But like, definitely when she was older, I mean, her emotions definitely got the best of her. No, that's not right. That's not correct to say. Not really best of her. She's more driven towards her emotions, not as much as she was obviously during the 20 years or 7 years or whatever perspective you want to have it.
Yeah, I think she was. I think she learned to use her emotions and feelings more. And I think you saw that over the progression of the series, and again, because they were in the Delta Quadrant, they only had each other, right. And so I think that not wore on her, but that became more important, and so she was trusting her feelings more, and therefore, had a more intimate relationship with the crew than Picard did.
Right. And it worked for her. So why not? I mean, it people didn't die unnecessarily and stuff. So, Picard did have Jack Crusher die, and maybe that turned him to distance himself more from people as time went on, because he never wanted to lose a buddy again. In my opinion, his best friend, and I could be totally wrong, but his best friend on the ship was Data. It's a robot. I mean, it's an android, but
yes, a safe relationship.
Right? You can, even if he dies, you can. If you look at like the video games, spoilers for anyone who's listening to this but didn't watch the movies. When Data dies, he doesn't really die because he comes back in the video games as Data, because he had downloaded himself into lore, or the third robot,
Before.
Yeah, there you go. Before. So once he did that, then they took that programming out of Before and put it back into a Data, and Data's back. So even if he loses Data, he doesn't necessarily lose Data.
Yeah.
Right? He was friendly-ish with Worf. He was friendly with Geordi, but he didn't build strong relationships. He didn't even build a strong relationship with his
with Riker.
Riker,
Yeah. Yeah, which in contrast, you mentioned Captain Jonathan Archer from Enterprise. I mean, you see that friendship that he has with Trip definitely sort of got them into trouble, because there were many times when Captain Archer was like, Trip, you need to step back. I'm the captain, and, you know, sort of put him in his place, because they did have such a friendship there.
Right. And that started pre-show.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Before their voyage. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And that was, I'm a huge fan of Enterprise, but yeah, well, Archer in general, because I love Quantum Leap too. But
who doesn't?
You know, but that show in general, like the whole thing was just different because no one's ever done it before. So they were kind of like, in the beginning of that show, they were just like all best buddies going out on a voyage. Like they were like a bunch of people just jumping in the car and driving out on a weekend getaway. You know.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah, but by season 3, that's it. We're gonna go, and it was a militant ship.
Yeah, and he had to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
As a whole cohesive unit should be. That's exactly how they're supposed to be. But I know I'm going to shoot myself in the foot when I say this, because it's going to validate Zach's and Ken's interpretation of our show. But like, it's just like a hotel. I mean, you don't see the staff very often, so of course whoever running the hotel is not going to mingle with those who do towels and laundry and all that kind of stuff. So because it's so big, and it's a very big ship, so not everyone, he can't see everyone. So I guess he's distant because of that.
Yeah, well, that's true. But even like the very beginning, Kirk in the very beginning, they say to him, "Oh, well, there's families on board," or having that conversation. He basically says, "I hate kids. I don't want them anywhere near this place." And that was like the very starting point of him. He didn't want kids on board at all.
I think he's not trying to split hairs here, but I think he said that he's uncomfortable with children. I don't think he ever said that he hates
probably
children.
didn't say he hates them, but I'm going to remember it that way.
Patrick's headcanon.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
But he didn't want them on board, and like you said, they made a big deal of that in the beginning, and then it never really came into play. It was just like a way to get Wesley on the ship without it seeming weird. Because they never really brought up the kids again. They had a few episodes here and there with them, but it was never massive family outings going on Enterprise.
Well, again, it just goes to your point that, Picard is the captain, and he's going to keep that distance, even though there are families, and who doesn't love children? I mean, okay, Captain Picard, again, distancing himself, and he has that, anxious tension when it's Captain Picard Day, and why do I have to go to this? And you can see that awkwardness that he has, but yet again, showing that distance that he likes to keep with him and the crew. Yeah,
it was definitely I don't know. It was just odd how he's like really the only captain that goes through that too. Kirk, Spock, and McCoy are like best friends throughout the whole series. Then you have Trip and
Archer.
There you go. I'm so sorry. I'm losing names left and right here. Basically the whole Voyager crew at some point intermingles with each other in different ways. And Deep Space Nine was kind of odd because first Sisko doesn't like there we go again. I can't remember her name. Kira. And then by the end, they're like best friends. I mean, so all of that happened, but it never really happened for Picard. You never turned around and went, "Oh, there's his best friend from the whole series." It's just
so you think, because I sort of feel that Sisko is distant as well with his crew, and maybe it's the way that the show is written that, because he has this special designation as being a prophet, right? Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. So that sort of automatically puts this distance between him, and the show focuses more on that. But would you say Sisko and Kira are best friends? I mean, I know that he comes definitely to rely on her just as much as Riker or Picard relies on Riker, but I didn't pick up that Sisko had deep relationships I thought he was more similar to Picard.
Towards the end, I felt that he had more relations with them. Even with Odo, he had become more friendly, although Odo's really just hard to get close to because he's so blank in general. But I felt that he did get closer, and like the baseball game episode really showed that off because he went from like, I have to beat the Vulcans to at the end they don't win the game and they're like celebrating like they won, and Vulcans like, but you lost. He goes, nah, we really didn't. It's fine, but and those kind of like bonding activities happened somewhat on the show. I also felt once he realized and accepted that he was the prophet, then his relationship was opened up more. Plus his son was on board, which made there's a relationship you didn't see on other shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think, you hit the nail right on the head when it comes to like Sisko is probably the closest one to Picard, mainly because like once he got comfortable with being the prophet, and on top of that, I think it's because they've seen some action together. I think they've done quite a bit together. I mean, especially during the Klingon War, or at least this Klingon story arc, they really started to gel together and actually become a team in a sense. But like, really get back to Picard. I don't, come to think of it, I was thinking about this whole relationship with the Enterprise crew and Picard, and just thinking of ways that he actually tried to be, I guess, a commander. I mean, a commander needs to know what's going on with the people that he's over, and I can't really think of really episodes that he becomes that like any kind of personality except for when they start going like season 4 or something. It was pretty late, or at least I didn't feel that. Did you guys feel that way? Or I mean, maybe Riker is probably the only one, and Data obviously, but like anyone else? I mean, well, Crusher too.
Yeah, you start.
I forgot about those 3.
Okay, yeah.
Well, he does have the relationship with Crutcher up front, and I think the episode where Wesley gets in trouble for the stunt that went wrong, and
the first duty when Wesley's at the academy.
Yeah, I mean, he was mad at Wesley, but it was more of like a fatherly disappointment in the fact that he tried to lie and cover it up than the fact that it actually happened.
Right.
Right. And going on that, like Picard really does challenge his crew to grow. And I think that's one example where he's really pushing Wesley to tell the truth and to stand up and to hold Starfleet morals. He does that so many times, like in Ensigns of Command, where Data has to take control of the situation and, all right, Data, you have to handle it, and it pushes him to expand his programming, if you will, into that leadership role.
I don't want to split hairs again, but that was actually Riker.
No.
Yeah, it was Riker.
No, the one where Data is pulling out and the Shellyak.
Yeah, it was Riker. Because he was talking to because Deanna and Picard were looking at regulations to combat or to figure out the Shellyak situation, and Riker was the one that was talking to Data about talking to the villagers or whatever you want to call them, colonists or something like that. I'm pretty sure it was Riker.
No. I'm pretty sure. All
right. Let's see it. This ain't no stuff, Richard here. Okay, no, I'm just kidding.
No, okay. Okay. Android Second Officer Lieutenant Commander Data takes the shuttlecraft to the planet to coordinate the evacuation, as he is the only crew member unaffected by the radiation.
All right. I'll give you that one. All right, fine.
Okay.
Fine.
All right.
But if I'm right, I'm just kidding.
It.
I'm sure someone will chime in after this airs on the network and tell which one is right.
And say Amy is right. I will expect to hear it, listeners. You just go ahead. So, but I mean, so getting back to the point where Picard really pushes his crew, like when also with Worf, when he was dishonored or disaccommodated from the Klingon Empire, and like just right after that, like some Klingons would come on board and Worf would hide, and Picard calls him out. It's like, dude, step up. You know, we are going to run into Klingons, and so you need to stop running away. And, you know, so he pushes Worf to be better, to help him grow in that hard time that he has. I don't know that episode, but it did happen.
Yeah. Yes, it did. And I don't know the episode either because I'm terrible with episodes. But, also when Worf wanted to kill himself.
Oh, yeah.
Beverly Crusher was destroyed by this whole idea. Like it couldn't happen. It just was impossible. And if you can split hairs if I'm wrong, Richard, because you will. Isn't it basically Picard who tells her you can't do anything about it? That's his belief system.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's a Federation ideal. That's more important to him that he lives up to the Federation ideals than it is that his friend, quote unquote friend, really crewmate, is about to kill himself.
I agree.
Yeah,
I totally agree with that. I'm not going to split hairs with you on that one. I agree with you on that one.
Well, I didn't know. Maybe you didn't say it. Maybe I was wrong with who said it. And really, I mean, I think that's really Riker's point of the show is not his point, but that's one of the things they laid on Riker was to be the friendly one.
Yeah.
They split the friend from the captain on this show, opposed to having it kind of be the same person.
Agreed, because there's many times you find Riker in 10 forward.
Right, hanging out. He's the one who runs the poker games, and Data takes everyone's money. So,
yeah.
Which was a great scene when he finally teaches Data what a bluff is. Data's
yes.
like, wait, but you have nothing. Absolutely not. What are you doing? But you'd never see Picard do that.
No, because it's too personal, and it's that whole mentality of command doesn't mingle with the troops, basically, and
right.
I can see that working in Garrison or something like that, or if you're not. But then again, I mean, they're kind of like the chauffeur and hotel of the Federation, and taking back diplomats and all that kind of stuff, doing negotiations and stuff like that. But I mean. From my experiences, that a captain in Garrison, a commander in Garrison, they're not going to be too friendly, but out in the field, that's a whole different story. So
yeah, I agree. I have some experience with the military. I was in the Army actually, and I wouldn't want like my drill sergeant to be my best friend.
No.
But however, if I'm stationed with you in even let's say somewhere nice like Germany, it'd be a little better for you to be more personable. And I definitely wanted to know something about you in war. But it's a little different. Like you said, they are they take the flagship, the biggest, the best, all the best weapons, and then they make them run back and forth around chauffeuring people. So it's a little odd, but.
So I have a question for you. So you're talking about what you prefer. So have you been in a situation where your boss or leader or whatever, was strictly professional? Did you like that? And then compare it if you had a situation where your boss or leader was your friend?
Well, okay. So a few things. If you're a subordinate to an actual friend, someone you were friends with first, then it gets dicey. Or if someone works for you that was a friend of yours first, it's kind of like the whole Archer trip thing. No one knows where to stand, and it's kind of a push and pull kind of mentality. And I find more often than not, one takes advantage of the other, which didn't really happen in that show. That he just overstepped his bounds a few times. But I'm an electrician in the union, so we do bounce shops. So. My last boss of 3 years was straight laced, right by the book. Just he'll show up to the job, look at it, and leave. It was all right. I mean, he was a nice guy. He did me a few favors. I helped him out with things, whatever. My current boss, I've only been working for a year. I have a much better relationship with. He comes on, we talk sports, we BS about this job or what jobs are coming, and we'll talk about vacations and stuff. And to be honest, I much rather this boss than the last one. And they're both nice enough guys. I mean, neither one of them were bad guys. but I'd much rather a personable, someone I feel like I know and connect to over, someone I don't. However, my current boss isn't sending me to die on random planets. So
you're not a red shirt.
yeah, exactly.
So you prefer the friendlier type. Richard, what about you?
So I've approached this question several times, and mainly because of my degree, it's criminal justice. And, we've debated about it on, what kind of, I guess, chief or whatever you want to call it, leader, which one's the better one, authoritative, relaxed, strict, it dipped in between, one foot in the other, one side and the other, another foot in the other side. Really what it comes down for me is what it boils down for me is that what it comes down to me is that, I prefer someone that's competent. If you're competent in your job, you know what you're doing, it makes sense to everyone. Well, it may not make sense to everyone, but for the most part, I'd say 98% or something like that. Then that's the person that I actually would follow. I mean, I've had a guy, when I was in the military over in Iraq, our commander was actually pretty good. He didn't do over the top operations that got everyone killed. Thank God we didn't get anyone killed. We only got injuries. It's just, it was sound. It really was sound. And he actually listened to his, first sergeant and all the senior leaders and everything that have been with the troops for a long time and has seen combat before Iraq. And he actually took that into an account. And weigh and someone that can weigh the penalties to whatever decision he's doing. Yeah, so really it comes down to competency and whether or not you know your job. If you know your job, I'm probably going to follow you more than likely. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's what it comes down to. So when it comes to like authoritative and relaxed, I prefer more authoritative in certain situations, relaxed in those that obviously need to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's my long way of describing that because I've been asked that question God knows how many times, and it's just that's my answer.
Well, I obviously I'm a teacher and so have had many principals, and I also like a competent, effective principal. But I'm sort of one I like to compartmentalize. So if you are running the school well, then that's great, and I appreciate that and I respect that and definitely willing to follow and try new things and, go the distance with that principle. Fortunately, the ones that I have not respected, they try too hard to be the relaxed, the friend. I'm like, no, you're not my friend. You're my principal. You evaluate me. You run the school. Stop trying to be my friend. And do your job, and I tend to take that perspective with my students, although I'm very, and I don't want us to sound harsh, but it's like, I'm your teacher and I'm not your friend. And so you're going to learn things. You're going to, these are my expectations while in my classroom, outside of the classroom, if you come after school, it's still, we're very math focused, and my kids do come to appreciate it. And they always tell me that they learn a lot in my class. And I'm grateful for that because I think that is my role. In the beginning, when I first was teaching, I've been teaching now 16 years. And the reason why I got my master's in educational counseling was because these kids were coming to me with their problems. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to know how to handle all of these situations that kids are going through. And I've noticed that as time has gone on, they don't open up that much to me anymore. probably because I have put that distance there, but in my situation, I feel that that's best for me. And I also appreciate that as far as principals go, just sort of all work.
Yeah, definitely. Some of the best teachers I've ever had were actually those ones, just like how you were describing, is that, by the book, strict, and, had that relationship. You're a student, I'm the teacher. What I say is, obviously the lesson plan and whatnot. We're not going to stray away from that. And definitely I've learned so much more from those teachers than those who, I hope they're not listening because two of them are actually friends on Facebook and they just retired. But like, I didn't learn anything. They made it sound like they were a joke, and I hate saying it like that, but I mean, it's, and crazy enough, they're females, and I'm not saying that I don't respect females, but it doesn't matter if you're a female or a male or anything like that. If you can't control your classroom, why are you there?
Yeah.
Or at least that's how I see it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I had sorry, we're on a tangent now, but I had a middle school English teacher, and it was her first year teaching. And I remember back then as a student saying, oh my gosh, if I were a first year teacher, I would never, tell the class that you're a first year teacher. And I never did my first year. And all I remember was that she went to Italy for the summer, and I know all about her personal life. And I thought, my gosh, that's not why I'm here in school. I'm trying to learn English. And I remember her for those reasons. And so I guess if she wanted to be remembered, then she did, but not for what I think is the right reasons. So that stuck with me ever since middle school.
I never had a teacher like that at all.
Wow.
I had strict, the normal, strict, taught the class, got the point across, we learned the lesson. And then I had jerk, but I never had like overly nice. Like that might've been welcomed at that point, because most of mine were overly jerk. Like, I don't know, maybe it's New York. They hate us.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to say it. I was waiting for you to say that.
I went to public school for a long time, and it was rough. And then I went to Catholic school, and it was rougher.
Oh, my goodness.
They don't have spikes on the end of the rulers?
Not anymore. I just missed that. I did in first grade get my mouth taped shut for talking at lunch.
Oh, I would love to do that.
At lunch? It was lunch.
Well, not lunch, but in my class. No.
I spent 3 days in that school, and then I went back to public school.
Oh, my goodness.
The dark secrets of Amy Nelson.
I hope my grandmother doesn't listen to this podcast, because I don't think she knows that story.
Oh.
And she does in Star Trek, by the way. So...
Oh.
My goodness, that's got to be hard. Oh, man.
So I get real bad tangent. Like I said, jerk, right? So I talked to the kid in front. We had to eat lunch in our classrooms in first grade because you weren't old enough to go to the cafeteria yet in that Catholic school. And it was a Catholic school. But I didn't have a nun as a teacher. But she taped my mouth shut, and I had to go to gym that way. My mom lost her mind when I got home and found out, and went down to the school the next day to ask the teacher why. My mom, then the teacher took one look at my mom's face from the door and didn't leave the building. And that was my last day at Catholic school till high school.
Wow.
Indeed.
Yep.
You can't even do that now.
Oh, that's insanity.
Even though there are some kids that do deserve it.
I teach the apprenticeship in my union. And again, like you said, some teachers, like a lot of the newer teachers, I'm one of the newer teachers. Again, I don't tell them that. Although I do tell them I've only done electrical work for 3 days, so don't expect much from me. But and I've done it for 10 years. But a lot of the newer teachers that came in when I did, like you could tell they were recently apprentices, so they still kind of want to be buddy, and hey, they go to the same bars the apprentices go to and hang out with them, have a couple of drinks before class, and then you walk in their classroom and they're just running amok. I mean, the kids don't pay attention. The guy's writing on the board and they're throwing papers back. It's like, is this fifth grade or is this a career move? Like,
Yeah. You do need to have, again, that, in my opinion, that distance to accomplish your directive, and I think Picard understands that as being older. Kirk was in his 30s, right? But I think he's the oldest captain of them all, and I think he's learned that lesson.
What? Yeah. I wouldn't call him old. I call him older, like oldest or whatever. he's
old, the most mature.
Yeah, he's the most elder.
Yeah, elder. I don't know about mature. Okay. No.
We're splitting hairs again.
Yes, mature.
All right, I'll just shut up.
Who else would you say is mature? Well, I think Cisco is.
I think okay. So if we're gonna do that, okay. So I think Cisco is actually at the bottom for when it comes to maturity, because now as he grows older and everything, because first off, we started with the series as a very young, inexperienced commander. He saw combat in 359, but that was what he went back to Earth and basically became a hermit. Basically, is what he did, hiding in it and whatnot. Now, I'm not saying anything bad with it, the depression, whatever, and whatnot. You can towards the story, but as he got to the old at the end of the series, yes, I would say he's very mature, that father type. To me, I'm a huge fan of Enterprise. I absolutely love Archer. and the reason why is because Archer is one of those commanders that he truly was a pioneer. He was a guy that basically wrote the book before the book ever even existed. And, even before even before Kirk, he basically wrote the protocol for, first contact, for, surveying planets and just even exploring in general, charting starts and whatnot. And I think he's the more mature commander mainly because of that, because Picard's he's a good captain. Don't get me wrong. But the problem I have with Kirk, I'm sorry. No, I don't have a problem with Kirk. The problem I have with Picard is that, but there's not much growth in him. There's the personal relationship, and that's kind of what I didn't like about Picard. I liked his growth, his personal growth, and trying to have a girlfriend or a love life, or even a personal, or even hobbies or something like that. That's great, but you really don't see him grow professionally, or at least I didn't see it that way. Because he might be, he leans on those who are experts in their fields and whatnot, but it didn't feel like he was like every other captain. Like everyone felt like they grew professionally. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't know.
That's interesting. And you bring up an interesting point, because you say that we don't see him grow, but yet I think out of all the captains, he's one that has the most culture, the most hobbies that we get to see actual episodes about. You can say Cisco likes baseball. Okay, well, what else? Janeway likes coffee and to take baths. And she likes
and changing people on changing holograms to her fancy.
Yeah, that's how I was going there with that hologram. Yeah. But we learn about Picard, like he loves archaeology. There have been a couple episodes based around that, Captain's Holiday and the Iconian, and the one on season 6 where the professor gives him that thing. Anyways, so there's a bunch of episodes where we're talking about Picard's hobbies, more so than any other of the captains. Like he reads Shakespeare, he does all of his readings, and even the fictional books like Dixon Hill. We see so much more and different sides of Picard that's we don't see with other captains. And Archer, he likes that volleyball in the water. What's that called?
Water polo.
Yeah. So sorry. Don't scream at me.
Whatever their version of DVDs are, I guess, or or cable.
So I mean, each captain has their thing, but we've got Picard with multiple outside hobbies that are, featured throughout the season or throughout the series. So it's interesting still that we know more about Picard, but yet he still doesn't have that relationship with his commanding officers.
Well, what I meant by like professionalism, or his career or something like that, we really don't see him make mistakes. I mean, okay, he ran to a trap on Celtic, or is it Celtic? Is that the one where yeah, you have to make me think about that, huh? Okay, so no, we don't really see Picard making mistakes. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. Is like, yeah, we do see him culture, like, because like what we Archer crap, I can't remember what Archer did, but I'll come back to it. Like, Kirk almost kills a crew member and almost faced a penalty in court martial. Friggin' Janeway basically almost made a mistake with the Equinox.
She made a mistake in the first episode too. She could have gotten back. I mean, the show doesn't exist then.
Yeah.
If she really cared more about the crew than anything else, she gets sent home.
That's true. That's very true. That is very true. Yeah. And, and even Cisco has made a couple mistakes where, it could have gone one way or the other, and it actually foiled on. I can't think of the episode name, but I remember him killing people by accident. But I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Like, we really don't see Picard making a mistake. And to me, he's like this perfect captain, so to speak. Yet he's not perfect in his relationships. That is, and that's what I meant by professionally. So yeah,
it's weird because, like you said, they don't give him these relationships, but then they never capitalize on that fact. They capitalize the relationships with everyone else, like when in Deep Space Nine when Nog gets injured. That was a relationship that Cisco started out with, kind of getting him into Starfleet just to get him to go away, to where he actually cares about his Starfleet career towards the end. Mm-hmm. The one thing I would split hairs with you on, though, is that when that show starts, he's only a commander and not a captain. So he shouldn't be as mature as a captain as the other captains were.
Didn't I say that?
Oh.
I'm pretty sure I did.
But I don't think he should be as mature because he's not actually a captain.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah.
So
going back to that, how long had Janeway been a captain? Do we know? Or the other captains? I mean, obviously Archer, no one had been out in space before. So he
becomes at that moment.
I think all of them do. I think Cisco's the only one that we really didn't start out as a captain, and an experienced captain.
Mm-hmm.
I think what she means is, like, did Kirk have 5 years before the start of the original series? When did he become it? Was it before the show? Was it the beginning? Like, Captain Picard was captain beforehand.
Yeah, I was gonna say, a battlefield commission, but yeah. On the Stargazer, yeah.
But he still has that experience, and like Archer had no experience. It was here's the keys, go, have fun.
Right.
Cisco's just a commander when he starts. But I don't really know what the answer to that is for the other captains or whatever.
I do believe Voyager was Janeway's first command, and she just got promoted. I don't think they really don't talk about that, or at least not to my knowledge they do. But I think Kirk, that was the second 5 years. I think it is.
Yeah, I believe so. But
yeah,
because they make him an admiral right afterwards. So it couldn't have been his first 5 years unless they were really short on admirals.
Yeah, that would suck.
There's like 3 of them in a room and they decide everything, but it just, so they kind of accelerate his career path anyway. I find it funny that you say that you felt that Cisco was on the bottom maturity wise, but then raises because I find towards the end when he leaves the baseball, that's one of the most immature things you could do.
It says a message. That's the message.
Oh, jerk.
I'll be back. It's confidence.
if they didn't know he was coming back, they were crazy. It was a cool scene when he's like, "Why do you leave a baseball?" And Duct, goes, "Oh, he's telling us he's coming back," and they're like, "No, he's not." And the rest of us are watching, going, "He better." I mean,
and thus ends D Space Nine at season 5. Yeah, that would be a very short series.
Yeah, that would totally be terrible. But he just leaves and says, "The heck with it. I don't need this." But see, I think that whole thing shows his relationship towards just the Bajoran people in general, because Starfleet didn't want him fighting for that base.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted him to leave, and he found his way out of it was to leave, but not really. I mean, he always knew he was coming back, and he left them to just put up with whatever they had to put up with till he could return. Now, if he was Picard, he leaves.
You think he would leave?
I think so. The Federation said, we're leaving. I mean, eventually they'd obviously have to spin it back or there is no show, but it wouldn't be his decision. He wouldn't be running back to the Federation to demand it.
I think like Riker or someone like that would be like conjuring up some kind of plan or something like that to actually stay, or at least slow the advance.
Yeah, probably. But again, it would be Riker.
Yeah.
He played the relationship role in that whole thing. Because Picard does, and for all the times, I mean, I guess when I watched it the first time, I didn't realize just how many times Picard says the words, "We can't interfere."
He does. He does.
The time. He does. It's funny because everyone remembers that Captain Kirk, sleeps with a lot of blue women, and it doesn't really happen that much. And he says, "Beam me up, Scotty," and it never happens, not once, ever. He never said those words. But yet we don't remember that he talks about non-interference all the time, almost as much as T'Pol.
So you could say he's like the Vulcan of the crew.
Yeah, close enough, right? I mean, but he really like. It's just that his whole thing is just whatever the Federation says, that's what we're gonna do.
So he's no, I'm not gonna say attaboy. No, that's no.
No, he's not really that, because he does. I mean,
it can be.
I don't want to make this sound like we're like destroying Picard either, because I actually love him as a captain. But as far as friendliness versus just being a captain, he was by far the most captain.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'll go with that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, we do have the last episode, All Good Things, as you know, where he does end up joining the poker game. And I think that, as we know, that ends the series, but that's the last scene that we see. And so it really is a stark contrast to what we've seen all 7 years, but it's something, at least in my mind, where it's like he's now opening himself up to these relationships, and in the future, as they ride off into the sunset, basically, that he is really a part of the crew and that they are his family.
Oh yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, yeah, he definitely, and that ending was perfect. I mean, granted, he was distant from everyone, or at least it seemed like it was, even though when reality is that they were actually all really close. But like what we saw on screen and everything and whatnot, he definitely was very distant from his crew, and I mean that was a perfect ending. I thought it was a perfect ending. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was great. He shows up at the poker game. He's like, "Oh, wow. Why haven't I, I should have done this earlier?" And their answer to him was, "You were always invited." And now he kind of sees it back as, "Wow, maybe I should have done this before." And it does pave the way for other relationships that form throughout the movies.
Mm-hmm.
He's in the movies, he's clearly closer to everyone, and he's trying to find, not trying to find, but when he finds a woman to be romantic with, he wants that now, where before, Vash, right?
Vash.
Yeah, he kind of just was like, "Oh, you're leaving? All right, I'll see you later." Like it was kind of like weak, but now he doesn't want her to go.
Yeah, definitely. You do see that in
Captain's Holiday.
Insurrection. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the video? You mean the movie that doesn't exist, right?
Yeah, that one.
The Riker maneuver.
But I think if you look at Picard's, starting with Vosh, definitely they try and say, oh yeah, he likes Vosh. And then in Cupid, where he has to save Vosh or whatever. And then in Lessons with,
I don't know her name either.
No, I know. Oh my gosh. I just had it on the tip of my tongue. Lieutenant Darren.
There you go.
Yeah. And he was more open to that relationship, especially after the Inner Light, and so we see that changing and transforming him to being more open, and then finally ending with Insurrection, with that relationship there. I think there is a nice progression of him opening up and becoming more vulnerable to having relationships outside of the job,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I find it interesting they waited until the very last episode to introduce it, because they could have done like maybe a year, 2 years of that towards the end, and it would have been great, but I guess it wouldn't have made for such a great poker scene ending, and
yeah.
So I guess it's better off that way, and I don't write TV shows for a reason, so.
Well, I don't know if you guys have read the books, or at least the latest books, that they do actually, obviously, the relationships with Beverly and Picard as well, and then spoiler alert, Renee, their son. But they definitely bridge that gap of the relationship for Picard and whatnot finally. But and I love what they've done to the books. I really love just thinking about it, and how I'm basing my knowledge off of Typhon Pact, the last one I read. But I love the relationship that they actually built for Picard, and it's actually it's a fitting, I guess, in a sense, end for Picard, for having a family, and finally having a family, and being that emotional, or at least with his, I think his wife. Because I think they talked about, I think she kept her last name, Crusher. I think it was. I don't know. Doesn't matter. But I'm just saying, it definitely added more to it, and I really wish they would have done that in the TV series. It would have been a lot better for Picard, that is. But then again, I still love every episode of TNG, so it doesn't matter.
Yes.
They could have added more, not 26, but 38 episodes. We're good for each season. I'll do that.
Yeah, it did really. I mean, like you said, it doesn't really matter because every episode was great anyway. Mm-hmm. It did seem like we were bashing him like crazy, this whole thing, for not being very nice to people. But but I just wish they either gave him more relationships, or at least gave him a few missions that weren't just shuffling people around, that made it more important that he wasn't so close to people. That explained away why he continued that for the whole 7 seasons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But then again, it wouldn't be the flagship if he didn't run a tight ship.
Exactly. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's in a difficult spot because of he is captain, and I think it is a balancing act of building friendships and relationships versus being the one in command.
You think they'll do that for Discovery? So I know the captain's not the focus of the story or anything like that, but would it be that kind of authoritative, militaristic captain that doesn't take complete, that doesn't, completely get involved in lower crew members' lives and stuff like that?
I think they're going to. I think the people that it mostly follows are going to play the Riker role for Discovery, because it's just easier to write the main character as the social one anyway. Gives you more areas to go down. It's great if the captain's social, but it doesn't really help you if that's not your focal point of the show.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I hope so. But that seems like I like what they're doing right now. I'm trying to stay away from the news too.
Yeah.
I'm still holding on to my prediction, September 8th, which is the day I'm getting married. So they're going to screen it.
Yeah.
So
So your final thoughts on Captain Picard, Patrick, what do you think?
As a captain, he's actually my second favorite behind Archer. I like the way he runs a tight ship. I like the things that he does, and I like that he does somewhat keep himself balanced so that the ship runs well. I like his relationship with Beverly and Wesley. I don't know. Like I said before, I just wish they would have done a little more to make it worth him being so different. But at the end, they make it all up with the poker game. So I guess all's well that ends well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Richard?
I'm in the same boat. Archer's number one and Picard's number two. To me, he's a very effective captain. He didn't get as many people killed. Wait, did he? No, he didn't. But some of the things that he's done, like I said, he's a perfect captain, and he's what everyone should aspire to be. Or at least captain wise, that is. But at the same time, that's also one of his greatest flaws as well, is that being perfect. Also, you don't know what failure looks like, and you don't know what, real risk looks like, until you failed at least once or twice. Overall, I think he's a very effective captain, and I'm in the same boat as Patrick. I really wish there would have been more episodes of him having at least a life beyond the ship, further than what we saw. And a
greater interaction with the crew, because it's always giving commands, solving a problem, stuff like that. That a captain needs to do, and those decisions weigh heavy on you, and it's lonely at the top type of thing. I think because they were trying so hard at the beginning to be so different from the original series, that was a way, because like you said, the Kirk, Spock, and Bones, they were such good friends. And so this was a way to distinguish between the original series and this new series coming out. And so they sort of split the Kirk, right? With Captain Picard being the authoritarian and Riker being the fun-loving guy. And I think they sort of just fell into that comfortable zone of that's where it was. And so I think that's sort of where it's at. I hope, like you said, Discovery, that they can find a better balance. And they've had so many series come after the original series that I think it will, I think we'll see a better interaction between that, and see the captain be more personable. I would hope. Captain Picard is my favorite captain. I'm sure that's no surprise to you or the listeners, as I love Next Gen. I think he plays it perfectly, and I like his distance. And to me, it makes sense in my mind, because he does have to send people out to die in worst case scenarios. So I think that distance not only keeps the respect of the crew, keeps it fair, but protects his emotional well-being as well. So those are my thoughts on Captain Picard. Well, talking about captains isn't the only topic we've been talking about here on the network. Here is a quick look at what you might have missed elsewhere on Trek FM.
Previously on Trek.fm, the 602 Club.
We really devote so little time to our title character. I was really struck by that in this rewatch. I haven't seen this movie since it first came out in theaters. But I was struck by just how little time it feels like Thor's on the screen, and how little they delve into his motivation.
Melodic Treks.
I said, this is leisure suit music. This is what somebody thinks is hip music in 1971. When I listened to it again, when you sent me the link to the audio, my thought immediately went to two films, which it turns out he scored: Our Man Flint and In Like Flint.
Literary Treks.
I'm glad we reread this, because at the time I did read this, it was when the new movie was out. But now that we've had the three movies, as you just mentioned, and I've seen Star Trek 09 about 100 times, I'm very familiar with the movie and not as much as with the comic now because I've only read it maybe a couple of times.
To the journey!
I've just got this vision now of Janeway there. Who's a good Voyager? Who's a good girl?
Well, she liked to, stroke the halls and everything.
So Tom Paris would be like, "Who's a good girl? You want to go for a ride? Let's go."
And that's what else is happening on Trek.fm.
You can listen to every show on the network at Trek.fm with links for iTunes, streaming services, and a direct download link. This episode of Earl Grey is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 150,000 titles for iPhone, iPod, iPad, Kindle, Android, Windows Phone, plus Mac or PC. To get a free audiobook of your choice, visit audibletrial.com/TrekFM. Thank you, Audible, for supporting Earl Grey and Trek FM. If you are a weekly listener and would like to directly help Earl Grey, please consider becoming a patron of Trek FM. At patreon.com/Trek FM, you can choose a pledge level and receive rewards. For example, $5 a month gets you into our patron zone. You get exclusive content and access to our early release of all of the shows. At the $15 a month, you get to participate in our monthly roundtable discussions. They are so much fun, and that's how I got started on the network. At $25 a month, you get associate producer credits for any podcast you choose. At this time, we would like to thank our current Patreon associate producers, Michael Huter and Justin Ozer. Thank you for supporting Earl Grey. Another way to help out the network and get cool stuff is to visit Redbubble. At redbubble.com/shop/TrekFM, you can find amazing designs for t-shirts, pillows, phone cases, and more. And with each purchase, a portion of the sales goes to Trek FM. Connect with other Trek FM listeners on our Facebook discussion group called The Babel Conference. You can search that on Facebook, BABEL, or you can like the facebook.com/Trek FM page for show updates and other announcements. The network is also on Twitter at Trek FM. If you would like to contact Lee, Richard, or me, Amy, visit trek.fm/contact to send us a subspace message or find us on social media. Well, we'd like to thank Patrick for coming on Earl Grey. Patrick, where can people find you on the interwebs?
Well, I'm always hanging around the Babel Conference. That's pretty much the easiest place to find me. Or I can be found on Twitter as well at MagicDrop5.
And Richard?
Well, they can find me exclusively only on the Babel Conference, and that's all I'm at. So with my Twitter fiasco that I haven't fixed yet, How about yourself, baby?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson, but my favorite place is the Babel Conference. Love hearing people's comments and talking about the different shows on the network. So, join us next time for another cup of Earl Grey.
Today is a good day to die!
Great joy and gratitude.